Hello, I'm Paul Gilbert, and welcome to Strategic Leadership. This is a channel where we talk about innovation and management and leadership and all of these great things. And today, I have a very special question to ask each and every one of you. Are you a Viking or are you a farmer? That's what we're going to explore today. A great subject. So before we get into that, let's talk just a moment about what this channel is about, why we have this channel. And it really is to talk about all these subjects I just mentioned of leadership, strategy, innovation. And I believe this is important because I think any organization with an important mission needs to really focus on these things to become the best that they can be. You can't just leave it to chance. We have to really take the bull by the horns and try to make the biggest difference we can in the world. And that comes down to using the best practices in all these fields. So for today's discussion, we're talking about Vikings, which is just fun, and farmers and the dynamic there. And it's an analogy. It's an analogy that is one that I used pretty extensively in this book that I wrote called High Performance Agencies: The Entrepreneurial Model for Public Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Organizations. This is a textbook, but it's also a great book for practitioners in all those areas. And I really start out with this Viking farmer dynamic, and use that then as an analogy throughout the book to talk about what kind of approach you're going to take. And the analogy came to me a few years ago, quite a few years ago, actually, as we were coming out of the Great Recession. I read an article in the Harvard Business Review. It had just one line that caught me. I think it was about investment banking, actually. And they were talking about when the recession is over, will there be any Vikings left? And it struck me as what an interesting term to use for people that are willing to take risks, people that are willing to push things forward and make things happen. And I kind of liked it. So I then wrote an article that appeared in Park and Recreation magazine that had that title of, Are You a Viking or Are You a Farmer? One of the fun things that happened was, as that article came out, it prompted others to think about the same analogy and the situation that we were in. And there were actually 3 other articles that came out in Park and Recreation magazine that all played off the same theme, talked about that article that I had written and reacted to it in various ways. And it was really a lot of fun. It was a conversation, essentially, a conversation that took place over a number of months with different authors writing in, using that analogy as a tool to talk about what they thought was important. And that was a fun thing. So let's talk a little bit about Vikings and farmers and what this analogy is all about. So in the way I think about it, I think every great organization out there probably had what I will call a Viking period, a time when they were founded, where they had lots of vision and energy and were willing to do new things, create a new organization, grow it, develop it, make it into something really fantastic. But those of you that watched one of the earlier episodes where we talked about organizational life cycle will remember that organizations, there's like a bell curve for almost all organizations. And they start out with a lot of growth and energy, and they plateau at a certain period of time. And if they don't reinvent themselves, they will go into decline. So what happens often in an organization is, after some period of growth and development, their operations are big enough that they're comfortable with them, and they kind of slide into just managing what is there and not actually growing anymore. And I believe when you're managing and not growing, you're in the farmer mode. So a Viking is always looking for new opportunities. They are looking beyond the horizon. They are looking outside of their normal field, and they are willing to take risks and share rewards and grow as a result. The farmer perspective or approach to things is much more staid. It is management and not leadership. So you have a set number of operations. You often do the same thing in nearly the same way every year. What works becomes the way things are done, and the focus is really internal to a farmer literally focuses on their fields, and a farmer mentality focuses within your field, within your organization, within your existing operations, and manages them, tries to get efficiency out of them, and reacts to external forces. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the management approach. Every organization needs to be well managed. The trick is, if that's all you have going on and you're not also growing, then you're going to wind up as an organization going into stagnation. So that good management approach that we'll call a farmer perspective is very different from the Viking perspective, where you are looking out at new opportunities and new things. Just a little tidbit about history. So the Vikings that came out of Scandinavia from about the 8th century to the 12th century did some pretty amazing things. I mean, they are known as fierce warriors, and you might not want to have a group of them pull up at the shores of your village. But at the same time, they were raiders and warriors. They were also trading. They were remarkable explorers and adventurers, and they connected the world at a time when the world was not very connected. But over time, over centuries, somehow they lost some of that drive. They settled into farming, and the age of Vikings came to an end. I think the age of Vikings can come to an end within any organization. But I also think it's important and doable for that Viking spirit, that explorer spirit, to come back into organizations and for them to grow and develop and expand again. And like I said, I think every great organization probably had a Viking period when they were founded, when they grew a lot. And if action is not taken, that dynamic plateaus out at a certain point. So the Viking perspective is really a leadership one, but it is not the rugged individualist at all. When you think about it, Vikings were in these longboats. They were going out as a community, and they were all taking a shared risk and a shared reward. So as we take this analogy to the next level, being a Viking is building a great sense of team spirit and shared risk and shared reward, and it's taking your group along with you, which is also fantastic leadership. One of the things I think is most important in any organization and kind of fits with the Viking model is innovation. And literally innovation in most cases is really just a matter of thinking beyond your current field and adapting something and using it in a new way. Even if you look at the early web search functions out there, the early internet search functions came from technology designed around medical record searching. So they took something that worked in one place, they applied it to another field, and that was the big innovation. Often we think innovation and technology are one and the same. And in reality, most brilliant innovations are really taking an approach, a technology, whatever, from one area where it's been developed and is used in a small way to another area where it can be used in a much broader way to a different customer, to a different market. And that comes from looking outside of your field. If you're just looking internally at the things that you and your competitors are doing, you're not really going to move the ball into an exciting new area. Innovation comes from thinking outside the box, thinking outside your field, and bringing something in that is new and exciting. And when you think about it that way, innovation is, in many cases, more of a market issue than a technology issue. It's about finding something and bringing it in and using it in a new way. And that's really where the high value innovations come from. An analogy is very much like that. You take something that is known, you bring it over, and you use it in a new and creative way. I'm just a big fan of analogies in general because analogies and metaphors help us think about things in different ways. It also creates a shared language that helps you talk about an issue. As we try to solve any problems out there or move our organization or industry or field forward, it is very helpful to have a shared language and some shared analogies for how we view ourselves, our field, and how we are progressing in the world. Like I said, in high performance agencies, I used the farmer Viking analogy pretty extensively throughout the book. The other analogy that I used throughout this book that played very well with the Viking farmer one was I talked about organizational entrepreneurs. And I used the definition of an entrepreneur, which really comes down to just a couple of ingredients. It is someone who is willing to take risks and someone who is willing to be proactive in the advancement of their organization. And if you take those two things together, really anyone can be an organizational entrepreneur. They can have a passion for what they're doing. They can be willing to push the envelope, try new things, and they can be willing to be proactive in their approach to any issue. And if you are taking that perspective, the entrepreneurial perspective, you're essentially taking the Viking perspective. You're not just going to do things the way they were done last year and the year before and the year before that. You're not going to settle for just looking internally at your operations, but you're really going to be looking beyond what you do today and figuring out how you can grow, where the opportunities are, what are things that are being done in other fields that could be adapted to your field or your organization. And as you do that, you are innovating, you are pushing your organization forward, and you are being a Viking. So enough said today. We live in a world that is rapidly changing, so our organizations need to be changing and adapting too, which means we need to be taking on a leadership role, a Viking role, an entrepreneurial role. Pick your analogy. We need to be thinking outside the box, growing and developing in exciting new ways. So thank you again for joining Strategic Leadership. What we're about on this channel is growing organizations, developing their potential. I wish that you would like, subscribe, comment, share this content with your friends out there who are also striving to make their organizations the best they possibly can be. That will help them find this content, and that'll help us all have this dialogue. Very much like those articles that came out a number of years ago that created a dialogue. We can create a dialogue through this channel and have a discussion about growth and development and achieving the missions of our organizations. Thank you so much. Have a good day.